was less than picture perfect when the first team opened camp in St. Pete Beach. The original training site of the Dolphins is now a shopping center, a drastic change from the summer of '66. Still, the legacy remains in its name and in the memory of those original Dolphins.
I had a certain image of how things were going to be, and when I got to the first training camp, you know, what my image of professional football was didn't quite jive with what reality was.
2 weeks before they were supposed to start playing on it, they were laying the sod, and they were laying it on this oyster shell. And I remember thinking, boy, this is going to be an exciting experience. And it was.
So we were getting uncommon injuries such as shell cuts and sand burns and things like that. The one redeeming feature, and if anybody has a chance to train by an ocean, is sitting in the water after practice with shorts on and having the salt water cleanse and just absolutely heal your cuts and bruises just like that.
Some of the memorable moments, living in a hotel room, bringing the sweaty practice pants and jerseys and hanging them up in your room to dry, and you can imagine the aroma after a few weeks, a few days that the room had. The training table consisted of things like
chili for lunch, and a lot of guys didn't sit too good at practice.
The meatballs and on the training table and stuff like that.
We were eating more or less what any of the guests there would come in, sit down, and order. That's what we ate.
And not only were the meals not very nutritious, but in terms of quantity, you were getting a motel-type hotel portions.
And it was a little unsettling. Maybe more than a little unsettling, because, you know, you just sort of expect, our expectations were greater than what reality was.
In the beginning, a sense of humor was a necessity, as well as a way of life.
It was just kind of a party atmosphere. I think that was really to ease the pain of what was going on the field.
And the first Dolphins were a master of fun.
The early days, there was an ongoing cast of characters, if you will. The Joe Hours, the Wahoo McDaniels.
Howard Twilley, the first few years, was very, very shy.
One of the big thrills that I got was having Rick Caceres. Rick Caceres, I had his bubblegum card. You know, when I was a kid, Rick Caceres is playing fullback for the Miami Dolphins, you know, the guy who used to play for the Chicago Bears.
If you know anything about Rick Caceres, first of all, he's a legend, great football player. He was kind of on the downslide when he came to us. I guess I would be considered on the downslide too. But we were roommates, and George would look at the team and he would say, "Curfew's at 11." He'd look at us and wink, which meant that he's not going to check our beds.
There was just a interesting group of guys. It's a wonder that we ever won any games, really, because we were just a bunch of characters.
Wahoo McDaniel was a character.
When I was in Oklahoma, I ran 36 miles on a bet without stopping. You know, drank a quart of motor all once.
Wahoo and his wrestling career, one of the favorite pastimes of the whole team was to kid Wahoo about how fake wrestling was, and I mean, he'd get on his warpath.
A lot of guys don't like to do what you do, but they don't have the nerve to do it. Well, I've never had a reverse gear. I've always done everything I've always wanted to do. If I wanted to do it, I did it.
In those early days, we had our share of guys that were outstanding also off the field as well as on the field.
Still, they were football players, living from week to week, awaiting game day.
You play and practice and get ready for Sunday, and the 2 hours is so short because you do have fun, and you're so keyed up, it just goes by so fast. And until you see the film, and you know, you look at films on Monday, you say, "Geez, did I do that in the game?"
That first game, September 2nd, 1966. The Orange Bowl was a three-ring circus with Flipper, Danny Thomas, and high expectations.
I certainly remember the very first game we played in the Orange Bowl when Joe Hour
broke the opening kickoff of our first game and went 95 yards.
And Danny Thomas running down our sideline and almost beating him to the goal line.
Of course, I'm sure Joe will be glad to tell you about that in much more detail than I can.
From a historical sense, I don't know, it's pretty important. I guess you never get a second chance to make a good first impression. So I think there was a lot of luck involved. the coincidental nature of it. There's nothing really overly significant about the run itself. It was just hitting the hole and burning it.
That was a really exciting game because we played Oakland extremely tough, and I think almost won the football game.
Nor did they win in the following 4 weeks. The more they played, the further away that first victory seemed to be.
We didn't look good a lot of times. There were the games that we began to win was simply because, as a group of guys, we seemed to get the job done.
October 16th, 1966, they got the job done. A pair of Joe Auer touchdowns led Miami to a 24-7 win over the Broncos. Win number 1 was history. By the next game in Houston, former All-Pro fullback Cookie Gilchrist was added to the roster. Another in the Dolphins' ever-growing cast of characters.
They had an auction for his car. Cookie, wherever he went, had to have a Cadillac car. And looky, looky, here comes Cookie was the slogan.
It became the Oilers' slogan as well. Cookie scored a touchdown, and the Dolphins won 20-13. They came together as a team, thanks to Kansas City Chiefs defensive back Fred the Hammer Williamson. A vicious forearm broke Howard Twilley's jaw and gave the Dolphins a mission.
Howard had been hurt bad by a cheap shot, and we just from that moment forward couldn't wait till we played the Chiefs again. And in some ways, I think winning against the Chiefs was not near as important as making up for Howard getting a cheap shot.
They got revenge in the Orange Bowl with Dick Wood at quarterback. The plan was simple.
We all knew that he was going to throw the ball to Fred Williamson. And sure enough, he did. I remember the look on Freddie's face. It was great, an interception. Oh, my God, I've got the ball. And there were Dolphins heading from all over the field toward the football. I was one of them, as we all were. And I guess we all flailed around trying to get back at him. I think probably we hit each other more than we hit him.
But the point was made. Don't mess with the Dolphins. The Oilers didn't pay attention.
The last game of the year against Houston in the Orange Bowl. Wilson comes up to me right before the game. He says, Dick Wood still hurting from the last game. You're going to start. He said, are you nervous? I says, heck no, Coach. I've been waiting for this and waiting for a long time. And it was a great ball game.
When we had to come from behind to win it.
We ended up on the 6-yard line, no timeouts left, clock ticking down. We ran up the huddle, up to the line of scrimmage, no huddle. We thought that he was probably going to throw the ball out of bounds. Joe Auer just kind of wandered into the end zone. Nobody covered him. Throwing the ball, score a touchdown, we win, on a no play. And no time left on the clock. It was just one of those incredible things. We were celebrating all over the place. Nobody, not even an audible or anything. And the interesting thing about that is Joe Auer scored on the very first official play of the first year and on the very last play of the first year.